Good evening. Hello, everybody, you wonderful people out there. How are you this evening? I trust you are all well. So welcome to the last ever Property CEO support session.
Oh, no. The last
That's
one?
because we're changing the name, isn't it? That's because we're changing the name. Can't hear you, says Stephen Robinson. Or Stephen, I shouldn't say his surname, but Stephen. Can you put your hand up if you can see and hear us, please? Let's just see if it's just you, Stephen. Hands up if you can see and hear us. Ian, can you say something?
I can say something.
Yeah,
There we
Stephen,
go.
it's just you. So, Stephen, you might need to adjust your speakers or personally come down here and listen to us. So I have you now. Oh, okay, that's fine then. We'll just hang around for you, Stephen. You just get your sound sorted and we'll be okay.
We could have got our IT director on the case, couldn't we, Rich?
We could have done. I could have been straight on it, but I can't because I'm presenting. Anyway, guys and girls, welcome to the Property CEO support sessions and the last ever one because we have now changed the name as of Saturday. We'll talk about that in just a minute. My name is Richie Clapson. I'm here with the other half. Some say the better half of Property CEO, but I, dispute that vigorously. Mr. Ian Child.
Good evening, everyone.
And he even talks as well. Look at that. Excellent. Look, it's great to have you here. So what exactly are support sessions we're in there at home, or the new name that's going to change? Well, these are here. They're regular 45-minute sessions. We'll be done absolute latest within the hour by 8 o'clock, but hopefully just after 1:45, we'll get you guys away so you can go and watch a bit of telly or take the dog for a walk or take someone else's dog for a walk or whatever it is you want to do. And we're here to try and inject a bit of positive energy into life right now. Lockdown's getting a little bit released, which is great. We're trying to put a bit of positivity into life at the moment. Isn't that right, Mr. Ian Child?
It certainly is. It certainly is. So just in case you're new, welcome if you are, and maybe you're not familiar with Property CEO. What we do is train people how to become property developers. And we're talking here kind of small scale projects, so not the kind of housing estates and shopping centres. And we typically train first-time developers, and our job is really to help them make sure that they find the best opportunities and that they don't make any expensive mistakes. And basically, we decided to run the support sessions to try and give people some tips that could help them protect their livelihoods. Obviously, very difficult times for many at the moment, but also with a recession looming around the corner, it really is kind of the perfect time to kind of think about and to prepare for some of those opportunities that inevitably do come along when we get a recession. And I think we've noticed from having been around a few years now that the people that get ready and take action in advance of the recession happening are typically the ones that are more successful when they come out the back end. So it's about taking action now and thinking about that now rather than waiting for events to unfold.
And this is a positive, we always say this, it's a glass half full zone. For 45 minutes, glass half full. Not belittling anything that's going on out there. We know there's a lot of serious stuff still going on out there. And in one way or another, I know a number of you are connected to it. And indeed, we all are in some way. So our thoughts and wishes are with anyone that's not well or anyone that has lost family members. But in here, this is half full. So just a bit of escapism for a while. Which is really, really good. So, we're here to answer any questions you've got, whether it's business, whether it's property, you can just fire them in. Take questions as we go through. So please put them in the chat box. We've got a couple of questions which is coming in the week. So you can always send questions in beforehand. Then we're happy with that. But please put them in the chat box tonight. Otherwise, we're just going to sit and look at you through the screen. And that's going to get a little bit boring. But anyway, so great news, obviously, a little bit of positivity that Boris is releasing a little bit of the lockdown, which is good news. I think he's allowing us to go golfing and fishing.
Golfing, yeah, those were the two kind of highlights to me. Although he did temper it with a bit of bad news on the haircut front. I gather I've got to wait till July or take some slightly more drastic action in the interim. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest. But yeah, the golfing, the fishing is good.
But how can you possibly go fishing with your hair looking like that? Mind you, fishing's boring anyway. Please give me a wave if you think fishing is boring. Give me a hands up if you think fishing is boring. Yes, at least a few of you. But actually, there's quite a few hands gone up. Oh, I love you all. That's terrific.
I think you were leading the witness, though, to be fair.
I wasn't leading. Anyway, welcome to people this evening. You're all on here. You know, can't mention everyone, but Alan, Andrew, Carolyn, Gavin, Karen, Joe's on, Michael's on. Oh, there's stacks on here. Stephen's on. Stephen's obviously on. He said he couldn't hear. Sharon, Roma, Ritesh. Welcome, guys. A few people putting a few notes in, which is always nice to. It's always nice to put a few things in the chat box. Good evening. Can't hear you. Well, you can now. Can't hear your voice, Andrew says. Okay, working now. Oh, all these techie people, they're all struggling here tonight, but they can all hear us. Good evening, gents. Good evening. Brilliant day. Started with a great chat with Ian, Deb says.
Fantastic. It was a great chat.
That made your day, did it, Deb? You need to get out more. I know you can't get out, can you? But maybe you should. Dominic says, good evening. We're both here, present and correct. And our international contestants here, Buonasera. Is that how you would say that?
It depends in what language you're trying to say it.
Well, I was trying to do Italian, but I haven't got a clue how you pronounce that. And I can't ask Michael because he's not. How would you say it?
You missed by a couple of continents, I think.
Well, go on then, give it a go.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Oh, that's brilliant. So you're not only good at fishing, you're good at the Italian as well. There we go. Karen says,
yeah, I've just noticed that Karen has suggested that you could give me a haircut. I'm just not thinking how that's going to. What style would you model it on? You could get a Richie. That could be the new craze.
And we'd have to do that at a 2 meter distance. There's a long pair of scissors, isn't it? So I'm not sure how we do that. But Debs did say it made her week having a chat with Ian. Debs, I still say the same thing. You need to get out more. Oh, Ritesh has put something in another completely different language, and I don't know what's going on here. So I'm going to move swiftly on from that, Ritesh, because I'm not even going to. Can you say that one, Ian?
Ciao, Bella.
Oh, is that Italian as well? Is that Spanish? Us people that come from Cornwall, we haven't got a clue what's going on. Not that I'm from Cornwall, but there you go. Okay, guys, let's have a go at a few questions. But before we do, let's just quickly remind you of the competition for the name, because we are going to carry this show on. You've asked us to carry it on way beyond it being a support session. It'll morph into, as it is now, really, it's you know, we have a bit of a chat, we have a bit of fun, we have some good content, quick fire stuff. We're here to answer in the same format any questions, but the new show is going to be called, as of Saturday, Open Door. So Open Door was chosen. We had a huge response. So those that didn't hear this on Saturday, we had a huge response in. So thank you for everyone that put forward a suggestion. Ultimately, it actually became one of the suggestions from one of our people that's connected with the company, one of the team members. So we felt it was only reasonable to choose the best of the rest. And Alan won first prize. Alan, I believe, is on the scene. I think I saw your name up there. Yes, Alan's on. So Alan won first prize. Alan's lucky enough to go and spend a half day with me. And Alan, yes, I'm sure we can sort that out through social distancing. Come down to the office. So I'll communicate with you the next day or so, and we'll get that sorted. And then the runners-up were Hitan and Sheikh Mohammed, who've won some books. So, guys, thanks for everyone's contribution. So as of Saturday, you'll see that name up there, and it says Open Door. We might even come up with a little snazzy logo if we've got time as well. Who knows? Who knows? Alan says, yes, that's me. Yes, I know it's you, Alan, because I just know that's you. It says Alan, doesn't it? So welcome to Open Door on Saturday. So let's fire off a first question here, which came in the week, and please put questions in as we go through today. Let's get serious now for a few minutes, because it's nearly 10 past and we've been waffling on. I do apologize. Okay. Mike says, Mike's question was, I'm in conversation with numerous landowners with regards to purchase and development. My concerns relate to raising finance and the fact that I don't have a property to use as security. How can I overcome this? Okay, he's got a follow-up question. Let's do this first question first of all. So when you're raising, this is a big misconception, I think, that a lot of people have in development that's come from the sort of buy-to-let arena or HMOs or even just, you know, new into property and they've just bought their own home. You know, here, you don't necessarily have to have a property of your own to put up security. The way development works, unlike if you're buying a buy-to-let or something, they want to have security. They're going to look at you, first of all. They're going to look exactly at you, what you have, what your assets are, what your earning capacity is. And then secondly, they will look at the property. They will look at the buy-to-let, they will look at the rental capacity of it, they look at the requirements, the demographics, etc., etc. Okay. In development, it's the other way around. They're going to look at the deal first of all. So, Mike, what they're going to do is they're going to assess the deal. If the deal is a cracking deal, then your requirements are going to be less. If the deal is a bit so-so, then they might want to see a little bit more requirement from you. And I'm just using the word requirement in the loosest sense because I'm going to just elaborate on that in a minute. So first and foremost, they're going to look at the deal. Then they're going to be looking at your team. Okay, who's going to deliver this deal? And this is where, and some people will know who are working with us. There's a number of our students on this evening. I know some of you are clearly not. Some of you are new to us, completely new, which is great. Great to have you on board. So welcome. If you need to position yourself with credibility, it's all about surrounding credibility around you. If you get that wrong, you won't get the money, and they're going to start looking at those assets for security. Okay, if you get it right and you know how to do that, how to put credibility around you, how to present yourself to the commercial funders in the right way, how to get the right team around you, which is all important. So they look at the deal, then they're going to look at the team. Okay, then they're going to be looking at you. Now, yes, it's important. If you own nothing and you haven't got a penny to your name, then it might be, unless the deal's really, really strong, they're going to want something else out of you, okay? Because they want personal guarantees. Now, personal guarantees don't have to be up to the limit of what you borrow. So if you're going to borrow £1 million, it's not that you have to have £1 million worth of assets. Again, that's a popular misconception for those that haven't been educated or don't understand development. But they are going to ask for a personal guarantee of some description. So if you've got no assets, it will make it a bit complicated, and it might mean that's a slightly more difficult one to do. Now, in those instances, and Mike's second question is about JVing, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute. It might be, if you've got absolutely no security, your net asset statement, or what it's called, is what value do you have as an individual, then it might be you've got a joint venture with someone who may be a high net worth individual that can actually sit alongside you, albeit they're going to take a big chunk of the risk because they're the one with the assets. So if the proverbial hits the fan, the bank will be going after them, not necessarily after you. Okay, so that JV investor needs to be aware of that situation, that liability they're into. But in that situation, you may have to do that. You may have to joint venture with someone. Now, difficult to give you a direct answer because I don't know the project you're looking at. But in broad terms, if you don't have absolutely any security, you might have to JV. If the deal's really strong, you may get away with it. In this current time, funders right this minute are a little bit nervous, so their loan to values are coming down. They'll be looking for more security. Going forward, when you're looking to do a deal, and maybe as little as 6 to 12 months down the road, so if we were talking 6 months time, then it might be that actually the deal is going to be strong enough to see you through. The second part of Mike's question says, also, if I was to JV with the owner, as I know you have done previously, yeah, we have done that. How do the legals accounting work with regards gifting the land to the SPV? Is there a best practice way to do this? Well, so let me just give a few comments on joint venturing. Joint venturing, actually, in principle, I don't like. Most joint ventures, unfortunately, Mike, in this business, in the new sector of new developers getting together, most of them fall apart. Okay, that's the reality. The statistics show that most joint venture arrangements fall apart. People jump into bed with each other, not really knowing whether they're a good match, they're a good fit, they've got complementary skills. It's well, yeah, let's do it together, let's get on. Well, they don't really know each other, so their values may be very different. Their backgrounds are maybe very different. Their drivers, their goals, their ambitions may be very different. So, first word of warning for everyone out there that's listening tonight, including answering Mike's question, is be very careful about joint venturing. It's something that generally tends to go wrong. If you have to do it, then you've got to do it for the right reasons. In terms of the land, obviously, there's no simple way of doing this. There's no best practice in terms of, yes, you should do this, Mike, or no, you shouldn't do that. You need to be taking some legal accountancy advice, and a lot of it is going to be more about tax than anything else, because there may be a gains tax, a capital gains tax that joint venture partner has if they if they crystallize that gain by putting that into an SPV. So it might need to sit outside of the SPV, and then you've got to have an arrangement, an agreement in place that's ring fenced. The value of the land is ring fenced. So when the buildings are sold, that actually the first tranche of money pays off the ring fenced land value after it's paid off the funders. That does get complicated because now the funders are going to have two charges, one over the building and the development, and one over the land. It's going to have two different sets of personal guarantees. So it's a tax question. There are legal implications, and it's a funding question. So some funders might go, no, we're not doing that unless the land's in here. But then the joint venture partner might not want to put the land in because then they're going to pay capital gains tax. And of course, everyone's position is different. So there's no one size fits all. There's no best practice. You should do this, you should do that. And you know, that's the reality in a lot of things in development. A lot of people say, well, surely there's people often talk about option agreements. People say, have you got a standard template for an option agreement? No, there's an approach, but actually every different option agreement should be different because every business scenario is different. So Mike, I think really here, first point, be very cautious of joint venturing. And second, there's not one size fits all with land. Take some legal and accountancy advice to pick up on that. Hopefully that's answered that question.
I think what's quite interesting is the fact that quite often the JV thing looks really attractive. If you've got sort of some of the bits that are needed to be able to make the development work, it might be you've got the knowledge, but the other person has got maybe the money, or they've got the asset, or perhaps they've got some knowledge that is complementary to yours. Maybe they've got a bit of experience in development, whatever. Then back in the days when we used to go for a drink in a pub, over a beer, it all sounds quite good. All of the two sort of jigsaw pieces do stack up. But as Richie says, there's been many a JV kind of partnership struck in that environment that then unravels because the values that the people have were different. They're not necessarily wrong or bad values, they're just not compatible. And because it's on a journey that involves potentially quite a bit of money and a bit of time, generally these partnerships obviously last for the duration of a project. It can be, 1 to 2 years, in some cases even more than that. Then lots of things can happen, a lot of personal circumstances can change. And then of course, you can't really explore all the what if scenarios. And if you don't know the person particularly well, then you kind of don't have that sense of their values. You tend to, it looks good on paper, but perhaps, the devil is kind of in the detail when you're actually living it and things start happening. So yeah, you will definitely get that warm glow at the start and think it's quite a good fit on paper. But please do, pay attention to that kind of view that there's a lot more to it than that.
I think the thing is there, just to follow from what Ian said, is anything in business, when you get to a point and you have to pull the contract out of the drawer, okay, then you're in trouble. No one's going to win. The only people that win will be the solicitors. I don't know if we've got any on tonight. None that I know of on there that I can see. So we can talk about them freely, but maybe they are. Who knows? So the thing is, they're the only people that will make money at that time, because when you're in there and now you're arguing, well, you said this, or the document says that, and there's a comma in the wrong place, or whatever it's going to be, you're in trouble. So I've always, you've got to go through some mediation process, try and get there. But who wants to do that? You've got to make sure, and I've always said a strong thing I would say, if you're going to joint venture with someone, make sure they're in your social circles, okay? You can pursue them legally, you can do this, do that. That's just so long-winded. Ultimately, if someone's got similar values, and you should better check that out in your social circles, find out who knows them, what they've done in the past, what's happened when the proverbials hit the fan in some other position. Because anyone who tells you they've never had a problem in business is they're either a miracle worker or they're lying. So generally people, all of us business owners somewhere have had some ups and downs in business. I'm absolutely certain of that. So if they're in your social circles, you can find out how they've handled it before. And then equally, the impact for them doing you over, for want of a better phrase, should the proverbial hit, is going to be far greater in their social circles, that people would just think, no, that's not a good way of treating that person who's also in our social circles. If you're far from that, and actually you don't really know anyone that knows this individual, that's when you are on a hiding to nothing, and you're resorting to contracts, and at that point you are in trouble. Karen had a follow-up question. She said, wasn't he talking about land without planning though? Well, potentially, Karen. I don't know. I can't actually see whether Mike's on here. I thought he was just now, but there's a couple of mics, but I don't know if this is our Mike that's asked the question. But in terms of that first part of the question, Karen, So he's in conversation with numerous landowners with regards to purchase and development. My concerns relate to raising the fact that I don't have a property to use as security. I don't think Mike was talking about a property on the bidder land to use as security, if that's what you were thinking. And that wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't. If there's a bit of land, the land in itself has a value, and the value of the land is only the intrinsic value of the land. Or if it's got planning, then it's got an enhanced value because that value is there. But there's no relevant building to that. I think this is much more about Mike maybe not having something for security. Maybe he's liquidated his assets, he's got his money to go into development, and so he's renting his own property. I don't know, unless Mike wants to message in and clarify that if indeed he is on. Okay, good stuff. Mike's question, thank you very much. Okay, we've got a question here. There seems to be a lot of, I don't know who this one's from, this one coming in the week. So there seems to be a lot of emails doing the rounds at the moment, advertising ways of taking advantage of the current situation financially. Do you have any views on what are the best side hustles and business opportunities to look at? Ian, do you want to pick up on that? Side hustles and business opportunities. That sounds like that's in your camp.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, there is a bit of a perfect storm at the moment, isn't there? There's lots of people looking for opportunities to do something different, create some new income streams. And I think for a lot of people, it's been a bit of a wake-up call. And for many, actually, people who had a career or they had what they thought was a job security, then all of a sudden, this whole virus thing has kind of pulled the rug and left a lot of people thinking, well, I've got to have a plan B. So we've got a lot of people sort of looking at ways in which they could potentially have another income stream, and that as a point of principle is always a good idea. You know, it's just about having more eggs in the basket. But we do have this kind of perfect storm. So in terms of what makes a good side hustle or a good business opportunity, I mean, take your pick. All of the ones that, you know, I get emails every day from people trying to sell something about how you can make money on something. So of course, sort of a lot of it is related to property. There's stuff on stocks and shares at the moment because of course the stock market's had a rough ride. Starting an online business, lots of people looking at that now for obvious reasons because of the shift of focus and the fact that it is much easier to do today than it has been historically. Buying businesses, because of course a lot of businesses are going to be in dire straits. So there's quite a lot of stuff out there for people to look at, and of course the truth is that every single one of those is capable of making money, and people have made money at it, and in some cases made a fortune out of it, and that tends to be the headline that you hear. I think the thing that I'd say though is that, you know, all of those, whilst they've all got something to offer, none of them are get rich quick. I mean, that doesn't exist. And so what you've got to do with all of them, because that yes, they can all work, but B, they don't tend to do it quickly. You kind of really got to put the sales blurb to one side because you're only getting one story there, and it's really about doing due diligence. And I think it's looking at things like doing the due diligence on the people that are involved in that offer, whatever that offer is. You know, how long have they been doing it? Have they got some good feedback? Give them a good old Google, see what comes up. Have they got some good reviews, or have they got some complaints? Have they got kind of a proven track record? Have they been doing it for a long time? I think you also need to do due diligence on the product, and in many respects, and arguably, I guess, even more important. I remember we've had a lot of conversations over the years with people that have been involved in lots of different property strategies, because obviously property is kind of the area that we sit in, and it's quite interesting because we see all of the opportunities that come up. You do tend to get a one-sided view initially, don't you? You kind of get all of the upside. And I remember I've had lots of conversations, and the one that springs to mind actually is service accommodation, where the amount of work that is involved in running a service accommodation business, when you speak to people that are on the coalface and doing it, there is a lot of hard work, and that isn't always something that leaps off the page from the sales email when you first hear about it. So how do you get around that problem? Well, you need to speak to people that have been there and done it. So whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a property strategy, whether it's stocks and shares, any money-making enterprise, I think you need to be asking questions of people that have been there before you, because you're just much more likely then to get the warts and all version and kind of then be able to kind of assess it. I do think certain things, like selling online at the moment, of course you can make money selling online, and lots of stuff is sold online, but of course it's now even more competitive than it was, and it wasn't uncompetitive before. It is relatively straightforward to, the tools now and the ability for people to get selling online quite easily, great, but how are you going to kind of differentiate yourself from the competition, particularly if you're new to it and so on. So the fact that it's easy to do doesn't mean that it's a shoo-in. If somebody gave me an instruction manual for how to open a coffee shop on the high street, I mean, that's great, but I wouldn't offer a coffee. How am I going to compete with the guys that are on the high street already? But I think, yeah, due diligence is probably the thing that I'd say. They've all got scope. For fairly obvious reasons, property for me is the one that has got the kind of the asset that is real. Stocks and shares have their ups and downs and can be obviously worthless. But property, typically, you don't end up in that situation because it's secured around an asset. So I do like property, but there are lots and lots of different strategies to choose from. They all sound great on the tin. Just make sure that you speak to people that have done it and kick the tires of the people that are offering it to you.
Ritesh, good evening, my friend. Ritesh has put a comment in here. He said, side hustle. He said, Andrew Koenig, he said, put your eggs in one basket and watch it like a hawk. What have you got to say to that, Ian?
Well, yeah, he definitely knows his stuff. I think you've got a choice, haven't you? You've got an absolute choice. You can do that. I think one of the challenges that you have, though, is you could have been watching your basket like a hawk when the coronavirus came along. And I'm willing to bet that probably wasn't on the radar of anybody. And what can you do about it? So it's kind of really accepting that there are things that are out there that are beyond our control. So we're not just taking, for example, if you're investing in anything, then you're taking risk. And if the easiest example is stocks and shares, if you buy shares in a company, then if the company goes pop, or something happens and the shares are worthless, then you've taken that risk kind of knowingly. I think the challenge with things that have happened over the last couple of months is that people didn't, it wasn't factored into the risk profile for anybody. Nobody saw that coming, and so if you've got more eggs in, you've got multiple baskets effectively, then you've at least got a fighting chance that you can mix it up a bit. You've got some contingency. Of course, with things like the virus, it's affected so many things that there's every chance that the problem is so widespread that it kind of affects all of your income streams. But yeah, it's I personally think in this day and age that there's a definite advantage in having more than one way of generating income, providing that you can do both well, and you've got the capacity to do both well.
I mean, I'll add to that just in terms of I quite like to focus on not too many things, Ritesh. That's really important to me. And I remember a few years back, I went to my mentor, and believe it or not, Ian and I have mentors as well. So I went and had a session with my mentor who lives up in Essex, great friend of mine, Stuart, and I just had too many shiny pennies at that time, where a lot of opportunities were coming to me, where people wanted me to do this and get involved in that, and they were so exciting business opportunities. And I mapped all this out back in, I don't know whether it was 2016, 2017. I had, let's have a look at all this. And I put that in my 5-year plan. And I went to see Stuart, and he looked at me and said, "What? How the hell are you going to do all this?" And he said, "Clapson, you retired. You retired back in 2010. What are you doing all these things for? Well, it's a great opportunity." And he said, "You're never going to have time." And he said, "There's too much noise going on in your head." And actually, he was spot on. And that's what a good mentor does. They call you out. And I realized then I didn't actually want to do half of this stuff. So I had to pick and choose. you know, one of the things that, that Ian and I made a big decision on was this business, and we would focus on most of our eggs, if you like, Ritesh, are in one basket, which is this basket. We want to make sure this business works. We want to make sure our students are successful, so we focus on this. Yeah, we do a few other things, but yeah, you can get too much noise going on, and I've definitely experienced that. Great stuff, Ritesh. Hopefully that has answered your question. Ritesh just follows up. He says, specialists on one path, Amazon, FBA, crypto, require time and are a steep learning curve. Yeah. Anyway, some ideas and thoughts for you guys there to take that away. Yeah, just notice a few other people on. Give a few other people a shout out. Yoko, good evening. You're here. Jacqueline and Leanne often give you two mentions because you're like kindred spirits. You two, you both don't have the kids for a few hours and you're on here, so that's great. And Doral, I see Doral's on. Doral, I haven't seen you for some time, my friend. I trust you're well. Hopefully that's good. Pop a message in. Tell us how you're doing. I'm sure. Hopefully you're well, seeing as you're on here this evening. Jane's on as well. Jess, huge amount of people on. Carolyn, so great, guys. Thanks for coming on. Next question. This is from Claire. Do you have a top tip? Oh, hang on. This sounds like Ian. You ready for this, Ian? You like doing tips, don't you? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready? You properly ready? Do you have a top tip for taking action when you are starting out?
Yes.
Excellent. Yes, Claire. Ian does have a top tip. Would you like to hear it? Go on, Ian. I think that's the whole point. Yeah,
I think when people are starting out, one of the big things that I see quite a lot.
I knew I should have furloughed him.
Thing I see quite a lot there is people kind of lack a bit of confidence in their own abilities when they're kind of doing something new. They kind of get the bit that they want to do it the right way, so they invest in in learning, training themselves, or getting trained. But quite often, when it comes to actually making things happen, they quite often stall just before the sort of the start line, and they find themselves, I think, probably doing two things. One, either having doubts in their own ability because they've never done it before, or they have doubts in that they've kind of done all the necessary due diligence. So they think, well, I don't know what I don't know, so have I actually thought of everything? Maybe I should just kind of circle around the block again and just double check that I've thought of everything. And maybe I should try and fix 1,000 things that could go wrong to make sure that they don't go wrong. But of course, the problem with that is that they then never start. They feel busy, but they never actually push forward. And I think the thing that's quite powerful about that and that message is that when you do push forward, when you do press the start button, it kind of several things happen. One is that you don't feel 100% comfortable. You might feel 80% comfortable. There's likely to be a part of you that feels, oh my goodness, I'm taking a risk. I'm kind of leaping into the swimming pool. And provided you've done your due diligence and you've got confidence that you have kicked the tires and you've got the education, then actually you're likely to be okay. You're likely to be okay because there will always be a gap. There will always be that element of uncertainty that you don't have. But I think also what happens is the kind of the magic part about getting started is that you're moving. And when you're moving, instead of focusing on 1,000 things that could go wrong, you typically just focus on the thing that goes wrong today. And so all your focus is on one thing, one area, rather than lots of kind of preparation, and you fix it, or you go around it or over it or under it. And then tomorrow is another day, and there's probably another issue and another challenge, another thing to think about. But it becomes organic. All of a sudden, all these other people are involved as well. That your business is now kind of integrated, and it's kind of moving forward. And so the work that you're doing, instead of just sort of treading water and standing still, you're still doing a lot of work, but actually at the same time you're moving forward. And I think that's probably, if there was kind of like one thing that I probably see the most and that puts people, makes it difficult for them to get started, is just getting to that critical point where they feel confident enough to jump in. And I would say that just be mindful that you will never feel 100% confident. When we're doing this stuff, there is always going to be an element of risk, and you always, it's a really reassuring and a very positive trait to be thinking like that, rather than thinking, what could go wrong, or just like, let's just jump in anyway. But yeah, I think that would be my take on it. If you start moving forward, make sure you've done the groundwork, but then start, and then you can pivot and move and do whatever you need to do whilst you're moving forward, rather than stay stuck on the starting line.
Was that your phone that went off then?
Wasn't the phone.
£10 fine. I'll collect that later.
I thought it was a text from you telling me to stop talking.
Okay, Charlotte's got a question in here. Charlotte says, I see that permitted development, good evening Charlotte, by the way, to light industrial to C3 residential is due to end October 2020. That is correct, Charlotte. Do you think this will be extended and other classes opened up to help boost small developers and help the economy? Okay, yes, and yes. Charlotte, so we've talked about this a few times on here, and actually this is a really interesting question, and you probably missed us mentioning where actually we talk about this in a lot of detail. This is probably a good half-hour conversation, Charlotte, to do it justice. So I want to make sure you get a proper response. So I'm going to direct you to our website in a minute, where we've recorded some content on this. But very quickly, do we expect light industrial to C3 to be extended? Yes, that's our opinion. We don't know. We don't have an inside track to that, albeit there is a session, if you go onto our YouTube channel, with Colin Smith, a planner, a few weeks back now. So all of these sessions are recorded and they're on YouTube. So if you want to go back and listen to any previous sessions, if you're new to us, there's some great interviews on there with various people. Colin Smith was a planner, and we asked Colin that question, and he too actually thinks it could be extended. Equally, Charlotte, there are some other interesting opportunities, we think, in the office market, in the industrial, also industrial sector and the commercial office sector as well coming up. What I'm going to do, Charlotte, because I think this will be more beneficial to you, because these things are definitely going to help boost the economy. If you go onto our website, propertyceo.co.uk, on the home page, there's a red tab to sign up for a webinar. It's a live recording that I've done in response to what people have asked. People keep asking the same question, and it's a really good question. And so what we did is we put the content onto a separate webinar. It's called Why Now, and it's about why now is a good time to get into development, and because of what you've just asked there, of what the government will, we think, do, and this is personally our opinion, of what we think the government's going to do to encourage us developers, or you perhaps if you're a new developer, get in there to create some of the housing that's needed and get the economy going. Why now, where I think the opportunities are going to be, and also how you can become a developer if that's not your bag. If you are already a developer, Charlotte, I don't know, then probably the first half of the webinar will do you. If you want to know how to become a developer, watch the whole thing all the way through. So go to our website, go onto the homepage, click onto the Why Now video, and hopefully that will give you the answers to what you need. So hopefully that's a much more detailed response for you and for anyone else. She said, thanks, I missed the earlier sessions, but I've done the industrial conversion course last year with you. Excellent, Charlotte. Yeah, okay, that's great. Charlotte, so you would have done that. Go on to that webinar. That will still definitely tell you why now and where those opportunities are going to be. But that's great. So apologies, I should have remembered your name. I can't remember the surname. Mind you, had a lot of people through last year on that program, and it was very successful. So that's great, Charlotte.
Well, in other words, you're getting old and you've forgotten.
Charlotte, I'm ever so old. I do forget things. So apologies. Please accept my apologies, Charlotte. She probably will. Charlotte, just tell me if you accept my apologies. If not, I won't be able to sleep tonight. Okay, Jane's put a question in. Good evening, Jane. Trust you are well. Jane says, where are the new opportunities in the marketplace? You've just been sat with Charlotte, Jane. No, she goes on. Mobile units for hairdressers. That's one for you, Ian.
Yeah.
And other close contact service areas. Property countryside homes with office rooms. Okay, there's a second part of the question on bounce back loans. Let's pick up the first bit. So beyond what I've just mentioned to Charlotte there, being a developer is about thinking out the box, okay? If you just want to follow everyone else, just go and learn what people call strategies, and I hate the blooming word. People that know me will know I hate. Oh, what strategy are you in? You don't want to be a strategy. If you want to be a developer, proper developers know how to develop pretty much anything, and that's when we teach people. We say, they say, what are you going to teach me? Now, last year, Charlotte talked about, we did do some bespoke stuff just on industrial conversions last year, but generally, we teach people to be developers. And Charlotte would have been aware if she'd got some of our online content, it's all about being a developer overall. And so you need to be thinking out the box. So exactly as Jane said there, countryside homes with office rooms. Jane, you should have kept that to yourself. We've now just shared it with everyone, but that's got to be a great opportunity because, you know, there's a lot of noise at the moment about a lot of people that were working in London, which is the hotspot for the virus, have gone back to country homes, and there's other people who don't have country homes to go to, wish they had, and they're probably thinking, do you know, I think we want to think about life in a different way. I put quite a few posts out there about people thinking about life in a different way. We want more out of it. And of course, the companies are also now supporting this because the companies that were very resistant to people working at home now realize they can save a ton of overhead by having their staff work at home. Even Barclays' boss, I commented on the post that Barclays said, we're running Barclays from people working in their kitchens. How good is that? And he thought that the actual, you know, the return to the big city centre offices is dead. So there is definitely going to be interest for people who want homes with offices. And I think what Jane's picked up on there is the really subtle thing is it's office rooms, but I would say, Jane, it's better than that. It's separate annexes, separate spaces. Because most of you, let me give us a hands up and let's just see a little show of hands tonight. Who's worked at home and is frustrated when you work at home because you've got the kids running around or you get other interruptions if you're actually working in the house itself? Quite a few hands, quite a few hands. Okay, well, I can tell you then, now we're going to drop the hands and let me ask you this. Who would love a home that's actually got a separate building that you can walk to down the end of the garden and have as an office? Even more hands. Excellent. So the point I'm making here, and this follows on from Jane's comment, if you can actually take a nice property and then in the grounds of that property, and I'm not talking about rolling countryside grounds, I'm talking about reasonable sized places. You know, you're not going to do it in small little patches, but you could put in a separate building. And actually, if you've got a good planning consultant, you'll find a lot of this can be done under PD. So and I'm not talking about a shed either. I'm talking about something reasonably substantial. I used to work at an office down the end of my garden. It's a proper oak frame building, underfloor heating. It's a proper building. If you can set up a proper building, and I used to have meetings in there and everything, it worked absolutely fine. That is going to be really appealing for someone to move into. They won't want to build their own. They just think, well, I'll go to that. So that's interesting. Mobile units. Well, it's perhaps how can you work in other ways? I think the mobile units, if I'm honest, Jane, and opportunities for other people to not have to work in close contact, I think is short-lived, okay? Because there will be a cure or a treatment for this, and if it's not by the end of the year, which is my personal feeling, it'll be within 12-18 months, and then none of that's needed. So that's a short-term thing, and if you're talking about developing, the chances of you hitting that market, unless you react very quickly, are quite slim. The chances of hitting that complete lifestyle change with the office in the garden, I think, is a really interesting one. So I would definitely be looking at that opportunity. So hopefully, Jane, that's answered that question.
Well, I think we've all still got our fingers fairly firmly crossed on the whole mobile hairdressing thing, haven't we?
Well, I don't. I'm absolutely fine. You know, I've had mine trimmed. My wife cut my hair the other day, and I think she's done a great job. Jane says, how do I raise a hand? Well, Jane, you can do that, but obviously we can't see you. There's a little button, Jane. I'm not quite sure how it appears on your screen, but there should be a little button that you just click hand, and it's like a little pan picture, and you just raise it. Have a go, Jane. See if you can do it.
Okay.
Obviously not.
Will you on?
Karen said an interesting comment. Karen said, Karen, it's great to have you on board. Karen said, so glad that you said that. That's about strategies. They're not freaking strategies, laugh out loud. She said they're business models. I hate the misuse of the word. Karen's very much into business. She's got a corporate background. Excellent, very, very talented lady. I don't want to build her up too much for those that know her, but yeah, Karen's absolutely right. Karen and I have often talked about this. It's a business model. It's not strategies. Okay, Deb says, yeah, working at home. Yes, Richard is a pain. Okay, excellent. Okay, let's not get personal. Oh, Jane says she's on the iPhone. Yeah, I think iPhones are slightly different, Jane. So those that are on iPhone, you can't always raise the hand. So apologies for that. Okay, let's just see if we can squeeze one more question in. I know it's 1:45, but let's see if I can squeeze a quick one in. So John's put a question in here. Sorry if we're not going to get all the questions, but you can hold these over till Saturday. John says, how does one ask for a reasonable discount without trying to offend anyone? I appreciate everyone needs to make money on a deal. Okay, John, you just ask it in a professional manner, and you're not asking for that's the wrong terminology. You're not asking for a discount. You're going to make an offer on what you think it's worth. And the key thing here, just to try and answer this reasonably quickly this evening, John, is that you have to, you've got to justify, in my opinion, and our opinion is when we teach people, is you've got to justify the offer that you're putting forward. So if a building's up for £500,000, 500,000, you don't just go back and say, yeah, 400,000. That's my offer, because you know that 500's come from somewhere. The agent maybe have advised the vendor. The vendor maybe have told the agent, I want it at 500. It's all about rapport. You know, if you don't build rapport, you don't know how to build rapport. And that's one thing we try and teach people, how you build rapport with agents. Okay, the right and the wrong way of doing it. If you get that wrong, you don't get anywhere. But you build rapport in the right way. Understand how agents tick. Get that sort of inside track to how they tick. You can then have that dialogue with them. You can ask that question. Look, I'm looking at this 500,000. Where does that come from? The agent might, if you've built rapport, open up and say, well, I'll tell you what, John, that's, you know, we think it's worth a lot less than that, but that's what the vendors come up with, because, whatever the because is. It might be that, well, we think it's worth that because. This your opportunity then, John, to go back and say, right, well, okay, that's interesting. I don't believe that because I think it's worth this because. You're not going to give away your deal analysis, your spreadsheets. We have a deal analysis spreadsheet system that we use and we teach people with. You're not going to give that across to people, but you can show them and you can say, look, here we are. This is my spreadsheet. And based on this, and this, it's worth 400,000. There's your because. That's when you can actually then say, you're not asking for a discount. You're putting an offer in and saying, this is what I'm prepared to offer, and these are the reasons why. Now, you might just find that actually the agent is sympathetic. The vendor actually then comes around to a more reasonable way of thinking and thinks, okay, well, maybe this is a sensible person. In fact, I'm going to hold out for the 500,000. And actually, any sensible person is ultimately going to do the same due diligence, because whilst you might get some crazy people just offering, you know, and there are, unfortunately, and it's sad as it is, there's plenty of uneducated people that seem to think they're going to just give development a go without any proper education. They come in, they give it a go, and they go for offers. They go, yeah, okay, 500,000, I'll take it. I've spoke to people that's come on board with us and try to undo those bad habits. And the problem is, you can offer that 500,000, but what people got to realize, when you go for the commercial funding, they're going to look at your deal. The underwriters are going to try and break your deal. So if you don't have a proper deal analysis, one, you're probably not even going to get an offer in principle on funding. But even if you do, then when they look at it and they're going to say, well, no, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right, they won't underwrite it. So they throw your deal out. And then you've just wasted everyone's time. You've probably burnt your bridges with your funders because they think, well, this person clearly doesn't know what they're talking about. They've got a number of key numbers fundamentally wrong. Your vendor thinks, well, hang on, you offered, now you can't even follow through. You know, the agent thinks the same. So it's a real recipe for getting it all wrong. So it's about professionalism, understanding and knowing what you're doing as a developer, and then going with the right offer. It's not about getting a discount. John, hopefully that's answered that question.
And just finally, just to add to that, the two bits that are obviously really important for them are, it's not just the price and the value that they can get from it, it's also the certainty. So when you've got a beauty parade of buyers, one of the big considerations for them is who is actually able and well placed and more likely to actually complete on the sale. Because having a great offer is fantastic, but ultimately if it doesn't come off, then it just wastes everybody's time and money. So they're looking for certainty as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Just a couple of follow-up questions. Raj says, you know you have a strategy if you know what you don't want to do. Raj, I mean, we just talk about the word, debating of the word strategy as opposed to, you know, as we said, business model. But you're absolutely right. If you know what you don't want to do, that's really good. At least you can start looking at what you do want to do. And I love just what a final comment from Jane in here. She says, think of the lovely Prosecco camper vans. You know, next take on that. Well, Jane, if you get a Prosecco camper van, you drive it down to me, girl, and we'll have a little drink out the back of that. Guys, I think that's more or less it for tonight. We're just running over the time. We've got a couple of small announcements to make. Ian, do you want to make a quick announcement?
I can make a quick announcement. Which announcement am I going to make?
Well, you're gonna talk about something I've got in my hand.
The mind absolutely boggles. Quickly then, moving on, we've got a new book out, which is being modelled by Clapson, and it's all about actually how you can save time. So, Property CEO, obviously we talk about property, and we've got a book on property. This book is about how you can actually claw back some of your life. We do tend to spend quite a lot of time being very busy, but actually not necessarily very productive. And so this is my take on how you can actually get some of that time back. And Mr. Clapson has persuaded me to put it on Amazon at a cost price for a very limited period. So if you're interested, you can go to personalceo.co.uk and you can read the first chapter of the book just to make sure it's not completely rubbish. And if you still feel that it's not rubbish, then you can buy it on Amazon for, I think, the next day or so at cost price. So Amazon charges for printing it and sending it out, but we don't make anything on it. So it's there for you guys to buy it if you want it. But the idea behind it is really to try and work out ways in which you could get some of that your time back. And I think particularly at the moment, it's quite interesting. When all of this came about, it kind of felt like we all had a lot of time. And I think as we move out of it, we're going to look back at that time when we did have some time, and we're going to miss it. So if we could perhaps do something about that, whilst we've got the perhaps a little gap to think about it, hopefully you would find that useful. So that's what I've tried to do with the book.
And we have an instant review, and you won't believe this, Ian, but Karen says, I've got Ian's book a couple of days ago from Amazon. Well done, Karen. I don't know how you got that straight away. Only read a couple of chapters, but really good so far. You write just as you speak. Slow and boring, obviously. Thank you, Karen. Well pointed out. Already tried a couple of time savers, and now I have time to watch your webinars. Karen, that's brilliant. That's great. Couldn't have planned that better. Karen, thank you for that. That's superb. Guys, just final thing, we've often mentioned it, we always mention these in the show now. We have a private Facebook group, Business Owners Creating Wealth Through Property Development. Business Owners Creating Wealth Through Property Development is the only place we really contribute to anything out there on social media with any great depth. So if you're not in that, please please apply for that, and hopefully we'll let you in, you never know. So that'd be good. Obviously, we've got a session on Saturday. We're just trying to make sure we've got a guest lined up. We're hoping that Dwayne Walker from Primrose, commercial agent, is going to come along. I've got a call out for him today. He wasn't well the other week, but hopefully he is going to be there. So I look forward to that. If not, we'll definitely have Ian and I. And so we look forward to seeing you there. So Saturday, we'll see you there. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Please always let us know at the end. We love these final comments that comes in. So just to let us know. So thanks, guys. G&T time now, says Debs. Go for it, not the Prosecco. I'm waiting for Jane to come down the Prosecco. Dom says night. As always, thank you very much, says Jacqueline. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for attending. Grazia ed bono nota, whatever that is. There's some Italian bloke on here. Thanks, says Gavin. thanks, Karen. Yes.
There's not one in the studio, is there? Honestly, are you going to practice? You need to practice.
Love you to bits, Michael. Love you to bits, but I don't know what you're saying half the time. Ava says thank you. Ava, thank you for listening. With 2 exclamation marks, says Ava. Fantastic, Ava, to have you on board this evening. And Karen, she says, cheers, guys. Karen has left. No problem at all. Good night. See you all Saturday. Speak to you soon.